Good evening. This is the Planning Board meeting of September 11th, 2018. If we could please stand, let's salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And before we, if we could just have a moment of silence for, we could all stand, please, a moment of silence, because today is 9/11. Thank you. All right, starting tonight, we have two approval not required plans. The first one is Robert Melville on, and this property's on Home Street. It's Assessors Map 65, and we could have a discussion and a possible vote tonight.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. West is joining us this evening to speak on the matter if anybody has any questions. He's standing in the back.
Do you want me here?
Yes. To the board, there's a copy of the A&R in your packets. There are two things that Mr. West pointed out to me that were absent from the copy that you have and the copy I handed out. Upper far left, you see one dimension that's north of the 113.25 feet. You see on the new iteration that I handed out tonight, 90.45 feet is added to that. It was a simple omission.
Yep.
Similarly, at the northernmost part of the map, you see S62-35-52. That was initially missing, I believe, the 35, if I'm not mistaken. I believe it said 05. Is that about right, Mr. West? That was the only changes? This is presently one large site, and the applicant is proposing to bisect it as you see there in front of you.
And it meets all the zoning requirements?
It does.
Okay. It looks fine to me. Does anybody have any questions?
I got maybe a silly question. There's a pond, a fish pond right there? Is that says, right?
Yeah.
So there's a pond
I'm sorry.
between the two properties?
I'm sorry. My name is Frank Westgate. I did the survey and the plan work, and I'm a little hard of hearing. What was your question?
On the two properties, there's one pond that's between the two properties?
Yeah, it's going to be split, and there's an easement around it so that each owner will have access to the pond all the way around.
Okay.
And it's a man-made pond, so the conservation doesn't get involved. There's no wetland.
Just didn't know how we could, is there any problems down the road that's saying splitting a pond in half if you have two separate people, two separate property owners?
Well, eventually, there'll be two houses. I assume there'll be two separate owners, but
Right.
the deed will specify what their rights are, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
So.
It's a small pond.
Yeah, no, I just
It's only a couple hundred feet
saw it.
Long,
I don't know how
yeah.
you split a pond in half, but,
and about 100 feet wide or 150 feet wide, so.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to endorse the Form A for on Home Street.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Thank you for
Will they
being
be
here
endorsing that tonight, or how do you do that?
We can. Do we have the Mylar here to sign?
If you folks want to sign now, I can pass it around now.
Sure, we can do that.
That would be great if you could. It's kind of crowded for space there, as you can see, but I think you can do it.
I'll take back the paper copies so we can sign it at the end. Perfect, thank you so much. Bruce, I'll take back the paper copies, so I'll sign that at the end.
Okay, so, there was two. There was the right one and the
Yeah, I'll take
wrong one.
Not just the. This one? Kevin, how are you? Good. We're gonna steal this map.
Okay.
So we'll sign it all at the end over there. Thank you so much. How are you tonight? Good. Have a good day.
Thanks, Will. Sign the paper copies after the meeting. Yeah.
Well said. Well, I appreciate your efficiency. Thank you again.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a good night. Next, we have another approval not required plan. It's Peter Beaton, Gate Street, Assessors Map 37, Lot 1. And this is also for discussion and vote.
Mr. Chairman, you have in your packet a copy of the submission. We have a gentleman here to speak on this tonight. Thomas, you want to- This is rather straightforward. Staff has reviewed it, and the purpose of the plan is to combine parcel 1L and parcel 1 into one lot as shown on the plan.
So we have, I see, parcel 1. And so you say we're combining? If you want to introduce yourself and maybe
Yeah, hi,
explain?
I'm Tom Mellahan. I'm here on behalf of Peter Beaton of Bayside Agricultural. And so the two lots that are currently on the assessor's maps were created in 2011. And the family has had some interfamily sales of the property over the last few years. And essentially, there's about 170 acres. There's two lots, and they're basically just erasing the lot line between two lots. So taking two lots and making it one big lot.
Okay.
And it's basically reversing an A&R plan that was done about 5 years ago. It's just really just erasing the line that they put there a few years ago.
Okay, so I see up in the upper right-hand corner, those were the two parcels. We had parcel 1-L and we had parcel 1, and so now those are just to be being combined, and you're calling it parcel 1. Okay.
It's just reverting back to the previous assessor's lot designation of lot 1.
Okay. So anybody have any questions or comments?
Meets all the requirements of what I can see for a Form A.
It looks fine to me. Anybody have any questions or comments?
No.
I'm fine at this time.
Make a motion to endorse the Form A for Bayside Agricultural on Gate Street.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so
All the way over here.
Is that 10 dying?
Could just be me.
That's just you.
Is that what you say?
Yep.
I'm trying.
Forget our chairman is left-handed. Or the creative. That's the issue. We have an engineer who's part of the creative class. I'll go walk this down. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Crazy. It has been a crazy last couple. I've been a ball of emotion. crying and it's a lot.
Perfect, thank
It's
you,
only
sir.
day 2, so
Thank you very much for your time.
trying to get anything for you. Can you tell me something about school?
I came in today.
You're in the Rose bus, which I already know because I walked you to and from it. But tell me something.
Okay, thank you, and have a good night. Next, we have a sign permit, Deacon's Cranberry, 4 Old Forge Way.
Copy of the paper, that's is yours. Jen, do you have a paper copy of the A&R map?
But I share.
Everybody comfortable?
So, yeah, what do we have on Old Forge Way, Stephen?
So, Mr. Chairman, we received an application for a sign permit, largely informational. Contained inside of your packet is a copy of the sign permit application, as well as the building permit application. There's some content contained as well about what will be on the signs, as well as a plot plan indicating where roughly the sign will be located. It's staff recommendation that the board look favorably upon the application.
What does the sign look like?
No, it's,
Do we have a picture of the sign?
yeah, it's that.
It's this.
Oh,
Or the whole thing?
The whole thing.
The whole
Oh,
thing's a
okay.
sign?
Yep. It's informational in that it instructs the public that it's pollinator-friendly flowers by Plymouth County Conservation District. It's really strictly informational.
and are they gonna put it where it's highlighted?
There's a space on Tremont Street, Mr. Chairman, that has 3 locations identified, options in red. I'm not sure it came through in color on your copy.
Oh,
It's the Google Earth iteration that they submitted to us.
Oh, across from the church.
oh, yeah.
So, I have a question.
Yeah, no, 1, 2, and 3
Where
are
is it?
here.
Oh,
1,
okay, it's,
2, and 3.
oh, okay. Oh, I see.
Yeah, that's it.
Environmental education is how they're identifying it on their application.
Do they have a little farm there, a little growing farm there, or what? Is that what's going on here?
No, I think last year, I remember there being chatter on Facebook, and then everyone noticed it. All of a sudden, there was like a beautiful field of wildflowers there. And no one knew where these beautiful wildflowers came from, so everybody was going to photograph it. So if this is what I'm thinking of, I think that's really cool to let people know where these wildflowers came from.
A bee habitat. Yep.
Yeah.
It's very pretty.
I think it was gorgeous last year, so that's very cool.
It's going to work great because also most of the bees are brought in on pallets just up the street.
Yeah, and they're awful hungry when there's no cranberry blossoms, so they're looking for anything. Yeah, it's nice for them to have that.
Yeah, everybody was wondering where the wildflowers came from, so now they know that it's special.
So the sign meets the dimensional requirements?
It does, sir.
Okay.
Are you laughing at me?
No, I'm
You are. It's cool.
All right, anybody have any questions or comments?
The only question that I had is, where is it gonna be situated on the lot? How far away from Tremont Street? That's a high speed area. Do you have any minimum requirements for that? Is there parking there?
No,
I don't see parking there.
Oh,
no, I'm pretty sure it's, yeah, just a field you drive by, and when people were taking pictures of it, they pulled like off the road kind of into the dirt-ish area.
You know, it's hard for me to tell based on the scale here on this map in the highlighted area where within the 60-foot setback they'll be situating it. If it's acceptable to the planning board, the planning staff and public safety can work with the applicant to make certain that it's set a safe distance from the road and have documented evidence to provide with the planning board next time we meet to show where roughly it will be heading, to be placed.
I guess my only concern, and I'll go on record, is that it is a high-travel, high-speed area. People drive way too fast there. I don't care about what the posted speed limit is. I know that people drive way too fast there. And people just stopping to read a sign. It's my only concern. And there's no doubt in my mind that it'll be more than far enough away from the main road, the sign. So I'm not worried about any distances or anything like that.
And it's not illuminated, so there won't be any lights on it.
Right? Other than that, I don't have a problem with the sign itself.
All right.
Actually, it's what we are here in Carver. So.
Is it two-sided so you can see it from north and south, or is it one-sided so as you're driving by you have to look left and right? Like is it perpendicular or parallel to the road?
That is a great question, Ms. Bogart, and I actually, it looks like it says
I don't know if I missed it.
PVC mount. It's unclear. It's
Yeah.
unclear by this application if it's two-sided.
Okay.
But you wouldn't have to necessarily have it facing the road. I think that's what you're getting at, too. It could be kitty corner or something so that people, you know, if they're out there, they can read the sign, but they're not necessarily going to stop their car to see what that sign says.
Right.
Yeah, I think that works.
I would think that it'd be placed parallel to the road, but it doesn't say if
Yeah.
if it's on both sides. Just so people would pull, I mean, you would have to pull off the road to read the sign, I would imagine, get out of your car and read it, so.
I'm almost wondering if they're putting the sign up because I work right down the road there, and people are constantly pulling over to take photos, like you said,
Okay.
there, because
Yeah.
the flowers are beautiful. And maybe they're trying to protect it a little bit so that it remains a bee habitat, rather than people coming there and ripping the flowers out and cutting them, or, you know, trampling through there.
Yeah.
So that's probably why they have to put a sign up, just to kind of protect their investment.
Yeah.
Well, I see nothing wrong with the sign. I suppose if we had somebody from town go out and just make sure where the sign is placed, that it's placed in a safe spot where people could pull off to the side of the road. Obviously, they'd have to pull off, and if they were going to view the field, the sign would be there and they could read that. So if we could do something like that.
I would be very glad to do that, Mr. Chairman, if the board approves the sign permit.
Okay. So, and do we need a building permit for this?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And the building permit's also attached. Should be the second page in that packet there.
Okay.
Or the building permit application, not the building permit.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Who, question, who for public safety are we going out, is gonna go out?
I typically work with Jesse Boyle, who represents all facets of public administration or public safety in the town.
It's a highway superintendent.
I could certainly invite John or David as well to join us.
I make a motion to approve the sign for, Deacon's Cranberries,
I'll second that.
with the following conditions: a building permit, highway superintendent goes out to make sure it's in the right place with staff.
write those things?
So we have a motion. Do I hear
I
a
said I'll
second?
second that.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Do you have the?
5-0.
Yep.
Oh, I have it here.
He's doing it for me.
Oh,
He
okay.
took my
Oh.
job.
Oh, okay.
I was all ready.
Beat him. Grieve him.
All right.
No, I said beat.
Oh, they said grieve him.
These are the originals here, I believe. Oh,
Oh,
is that the original?
That's the original application there.
Okay.
Our photocopying quality is so superlative, Mr. Chairman, you'd never know it was a copy.
I never knew it.
That's how we fund our budget. Oh, what's that? I'm very cool with this, so it's very comfortable.
yeah, I'm kind of freezing. Feels nice.
Excellent, thank you, sir.
I put the air conditioner on today. Just
All right, moving along, we have a public hearing on the agenda tonight for the application of Edaville Land Holdings requesting a special permit approval for the property located on Pine Street in Carver. But
Mr. Chair, we received correspondence from the applicant's representative yesterday. They have sought, or are seeking, a continuance to our next meeting, which is September 25th, if I'm not mistaken, at 7 o'clock. Yes, the 25th at 7. The staff has been working with the applicant. We've had some meetings with members of the planning board so that we can better understand some of the concerns that were expressed. And I do believe that the applicant has made a good faith effort to address some of those issues. They still need some more time, and the bigger, more pressing issue for them is the photometric analysis. It's my belief in working with the applicant that they will be prepared to come back before us next meeting and have to continue the public hearing and have a more insightful conversation of the progress they've made.
Make a motion to continue the public hearing for Edaville Holdings to September 25th at 7 o'clock.
Second that.
So we have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. All right, next, we have a discussion for proposed modification to Patriots Pine subdivision. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you for making a few minutes for us to speak informally about Patriot Pines. I believe most of the members were on the board for our first go-around with Patriot Pines almost a year ago. It was filed as I should introduce ourselves first. For the record, Sarah Stearns from Beals and Thomas.
Ed Angley, lawyer.
Legal counsel for Patriot Pines. So just as a little bit of background, Patriot Pines was a single-family residential subdivision approved through the preliminary and definitive process last year, end of the year, that once we started pricing out building the road and much of the infrastructure, we kind of went back to the beginning and tried to come up with a different plan. So Ed has prepared a brief memo that he's going to run through just to kind of give you the what we've been doing over the past year to come up with a different scenario that we think may work, and just wanted to give the board a little bit of an update on that.
And ask your opinion.
Yes.
We determined that building a conventional subdivision was uneconomic due to road length and construction costs. It's about a 2,000-foot-long road. We were getting pricing of just under $1 million for the road, and that didn't include a lot of things. When I read the bids, I mean, it was going to get to be $1.2 million, and that's just with 19 lots. It doesn't work, and having to do 3 affordables in there. So as an alternative, we are considering a 54-unit, age-restricted, 55 and over, townhouse development on 30 acres of land. But that runs us into complications. Our source of water will be by wells, obviously, because Carver has no public water system. But under 310 CMR 22.02, a public water system, or a PWS, is defined as a system for the provision to the public of water for human consumption through pipes or other constructed conveyances, if such system has at least 15 service connections or regularly serves an average of at least 25 individuals daily, at least 60 days of the year. A single well that serves 54 units would be a personal public water system, and that's too expensive to maintain for the number of units, because you'd have to have staff, you have to have people, it costs monitoring, it just goes on and on and on. Trust me. We've looked into it. So we attempted to devise a scenario where we create 10 condominiums on 10 separate lots, each with its own well. That way we are not under the DEP regulations. We thought that was a pretty good idea. But DEP Title V wastewater flows for housing for the elderly is based on 150 gallons of flow per day per 2-bedroom unit, while drinking water supply is based on 2 persons per bedroom, or 4 people in a 2-bedroom unit, even though it's age restricted. And I asked, why is the sewer design flow based on 150 gallons a day for a 2-bedroom unit, but 310 CMR 22 drinking water calls for calculation based on 4 persons per 2 bedrooms? The DEP acknowledged that this is a discrepancy in calculating how many persons per unit are served, and as each unit would have 2 bedrooms, 2 persons per bedroom, result in drinking water designed for 216 people with 54 units. We argued that we could restrict the use of the units to no more than 2 persons, with the 2nd bedroom used as an office and maybe occupied by a friend who visits once in a while. Under this calculation, each 2-bedroom unit would regularly serve 2 persons, resulting in a more reasonable 108 individuals being served by 5 wells, as opposed to 10 wells. But after extensive, quote, conversations with DEP, they refused to change their interpretation and insist that the public water system be designed for 216 people. They did say they're looking into it. When asked when they would be looking into it, they said sometime. So the problem then becomes that we have a 19-lot subdivision which does not lay out well for the townhouses. And that's because, and I'm not an engineer, even though I sometimes pretend to be, but it just doesn't lay out. And I'm told that the way that we have to do with driveways and for the units, you have to change the configuration of the road. We tried to find ways to create parcels rather than lots, but that doesn't work. We need a separate lot for each condominium, otherwise we fall under the definition of a public water system. And I won't go through, I'll give this to, I think I sent one over to Steve, but I'll give this to your secretary. And but what it comes down to is we either need to file a new subdivision or modify the existing. Carver Planning Board regulations on modifications are found at section 3.8, which says the board, on its own motion or on the petition of any interested person, shall have the power to modify, amend, or rescind its approval of a plan of a subdivision. And you can waive under Mass General Laws, Chapter 81, Chapter 41, I typed it 45, 41, Section 81R, you can waive strict compliance with rules and regulations. And under Section 81W, Chapter 41, 81W, you can modify a subdivision. So you have the power to do it. And we were wondering if you were interested in us being able to provide an alternative housing format in town. And we talked with Steve, and if you had your 19 units, and if there were 4 bedrooms, I think Sarah has the calculations, we'd end up with a significant number of people.
Yeah, I have that somewhere. Keep going.
And whereas if you had age restricted, you wouldn't have, you'd have 108 people or 54 families. And it maybe there'd be even single families and, single units. So we think that the impact would be much less. You've got, I hate to call myself elderly, but, over 55. You don't use as much water. You don't use as many services. Apparently, I've seen economic studies that say that over 55 people that move into a town move their banking to town. They do their business in town. You'd have very little impact on the road since they're right at the Plymouth town line. I think there's a lot of arguments to be made that it's good for the town as opposed to 19 single-family residences. We'd still have to provide a certain number of low and moderate income under the bylaws.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if you saw that, if you read about the newest mass housing ruling in Plymouth with Thorndike. They said you put affordables in an over 55, you cannot restrict that to over 55. You have to allow families in. And it was just an informal policy, but when challenged, they made it a formal regulation. So in the spirit of openness, I don't want to mislead you. Attorney Bob Betters in Plymouth and I have been good friends for a lot of years, and he was involved in the whole thing, so I went and asked him, and he told me what happened. So.
Thank you, Ed. So we'll get that memo, so everyone can kind of take a look through it and just see how we got to this point. But I guess essentially, we're reworking the numbers, thought that, we could offer a different type of residential housing for our town. And it's actually, when you look at the number of people that could be potentially living on the same parcel of land, it's not that different from 19 single-family homes with 4 bedrooms and 4 to 6 people versus a 2-bedroom townhouse with 1 or 2 people in it. So it is kind of interesting how it works out. And I brought just a draft plan if anyone would like to see where we are today. I can bring it up if you would like to take a quick look at it.
Sure.
Thank you. So, really the point of tonight is just to kind of give you an idea of where we are. We'll probably be coming to you in the near future, we hope, to finalize these plans sometime soon. But, as Ed touched on, the tricky part about this in Carver is that we can't just do a 1-lot townhouse development without becoming a public water supply. And, involved with the public water supply is siting 1 or 2 wells with a significant zone 1 and zone 2, which would put restrictions on the abutting properties. In addition to this property, we can't develop within that zone. It's very restrictive and very costly and very time consuming. So we're trying to find a way around the public water supply regulations, which, not that we're trying to get around it, but it just makes more sense. Where, our argument to DEP was, we just, permitted 19 individual wells on this site. What is the difference? It's semantics really, but they have their regulations that they need to uphold, and we understand that. So basically where we are now is we're showing 54 units. They're all 2-bedroom, because you can't really have a 1-bedroom home. People have visitors, family, whatever, even though more than likely it'll be 1 or 2 actual occupants.
And the road layout's been looked at by the fire department.
Yes, we've talked to the fire department. I sat with Jesse, who talked then to Chief and Deputy Chief Jermaine. Roadway width is the same. The length is slightly shorter than what was approved in the original subdivision. The location and layout is very similar. We had to tweak it a little bit, as Ed mentioned, to accommodate, mostly because of this circle, to make use of kind of the widest piece of the property. Again, this is for those of you that haven't seen this and haven't had the benefit of being out there. It's a very long and narrow piece of land. This is South Meadow Road here, and this is the Plymouth Carver Town Line. This is Village Links Golf Club. The airport's across the street. And there are residential neighbors here. So, you know, it's a tricky site to develop. It's very long and narrow. So, you know, we've used as much of the roadway layout as we possibly could. And, you know, there's significant open space. Actually, with this plan, if you recall, one of the, I don't want to say complaints, but one of the things that came up from the neighborhood, for the residents of the neighborhood off of Wade Street was that, you know, what's going to happen? This is all going to be cleared and, you know, they're going to lose their privacy. In this plan, we've kept the development mostly to this side of the roadway. So this is the open space. So there will be a significant vegetative buffer. Where it kind of jogs out is where the wastewater systems would be. We've broken it out into 3 septic systems to kind of correlate roughly with 3 phases of development. Initially, we had 1 shared system, but we met with the health department, health director, and said, what about if we break it up by phase? Like, you know, let's just say, for whatever reason, only 1 phase gets built. It would be crazy to have a septic system that would, you know, accommodate 54 people that may never get used, and et cetera. So he agreed that that made sense. We're maintaining the emergency access off of Wade Street, similar to the original design. Same thing, it would be an easement over the Eden piece of property. It would be reusing the existing gravel road from the bogs. You know, that's all the same.
Drainage basins in the same area and the same size?
No, we've been able to incorporate much more LID and use a lot of overland flow, taking advantage of, you can see the grading plan is here, taking advantage as much as possible of the existing topography, smaller basins, and, you know, grading along the road to address stormwater. So we have been able to kind of tweak it to make some improvements too. From the first iteration. So, you know, that's as we're getting ready to pull this together, you know, Ed and the design team talked, and you know, we kind of got to the point where we realized we had to create lots because of the well issue. The only reason we have to create any lots at all is because of the well ownership issue. So we're, you know, proposing 10 lots now instead of 19, and they would be lots related to the well maintenance only, and that would be, you know, there'd be a homeowners association.
Yeah, you'd have each one would be a condominium.
Right.
Then you'd have an overall homeowners association that would take care of the road, any landscaping, all that kind of stuff, the
Right.
drainage.
So that's kind of what brings us here tonight. We kind of got to this point and said, is this a modification of our subdivision, or do we file a new one? We weren't really sure where to go, which is when we met with Stephen, we were like, what, you know, I don't know. We didn't want to file something that the board wasn't going to be happy with and have to go back to square one. So essentially, we just wanted to try to get your preliminary opinion and what direction we should go in. I think that, you know, if we do plan to file a new subdivision, we would probably go straight to the definitive stage, since, you know, we're all, or most of us, hopefully all, are fairly familiar with the property and kind of what's proposed. So that's kind of it in a nutshell what we've been working away on.
Yes, this is more than a minor modification, so I would say that you would have to file, and if, you know, completely new plans.
Yep.
And I know that years ago, when I was in the business,
Yep.
not that long ago, but sometimes we would just come with a definitive plan also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So
I think
I don't think
given
that's.
this timeframe, maybe, it was less than a year ago that we were in front of the board, and I think that makes sense.
So I have no problems with that, but yes, we'd have to come up with new plans, new drainage calculations,
Oh, yeah.
everything
I mean,
for the
we would
engineers.
do that anyway.
Yeah.
We've already, you know, gotten that to
Yeah.
99%. We expect peer review, all that. So the septic systems have been designed, all of the hydrology has been done, everything has been take, completely re-engineered and redesigned. So, I mean, we certainly wouldn't not plan on submitting a full package either way.
Do you have any idea what these units would be? Would they be one-story, a two-story?
I think they're two-story.
Yes.
They're
Two-story.
two-story, and there are, I want to say 6 or 8 of them are actually duplexes, so they would be connected, have connected one-car garage or 2-car garages, however the architect is laying them out. And what we would also include in our package is, he's got 3 or 4 prototypes. So
Architecturals.
Yeah, so we would include that as well.
What would be the price range for something like
I
this?
have not a clue.
I was just wondering. Might be a
If
good
I,
place
if
to
I
go.
knew, if I had a clue, I would say it. I just don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, okay,
But-
that's fine.
I'd say from my aspect is I'd say that I like the idea of moving more of it this way and
Right.
leaving more of a buffer for the neighbors. That
Right.
was a big
Yeah.
deal. The concept looks good and everything. I do agree with the chairman that it's definitely a new application. I don't see any major hurdles that I can see. As long as the fire department's okay, it looks like the roadways are pretty much the same that you had before.
Yeah, I mean, this layout is,
It's pretty much the
I mean,
same.
a civil engineer would look at it and say like, oh, I see some differences, but it runs essentially down the middle of the property. And also just the fire department, despite, the fact that these are kind of offshoots and
Mhm.
there's, those driveways or those roadways will still be the same width as the 24-foot wide.
The architect is Nick Filler, I think. I think that's who still is the architect.
Yeah,
But I've worked with Nick for a long time. Nick was chairman of the Plymouth Planning Board for, I think, 10 years. And he does a nice design, and he has a feel for how these things ought to work.
yeah, he's done a good job. We've worked with him and, we've kind of reworked some of the units down here so that they have a walkout basement because the grading is a little
Yep.
different over there. So, different parts of the site have different
Feels-
nuances to it, so, but that's kind of it. So, yes, we met preliminarily with fire and they were fine with it as long as we maintained the access and the roadway width. Those were kind of their big things. The hydrant system will still be put in place. The duplexes will be sprinkled because they're conjoined.
Connected, yeah.
All of those details are all factored in already, so. I think we're in pretty good shape. It's a little quirky. We don't do this a lot in Carver because of the drinking water supply situation. It's difficult and costly and time consuming to become a PWS. And as I said, one of the big things on this project is if we were to, and we've tried, believe me, to try to site a public water supply well with the requisite zone 1 and 2. And the problem is, it's just, it goes on to adjacent properties and it just becomes prohibitive in many ways. So we really just felt that that wasn't the way to go. So, here we are back to the subdivision. So, but again, that's really just more for creating separate well ownership rather than lot ownership for the residents.
Yeah, on the telephone, we had a conference call with DEP, and I said, well, all right, I'll create 10 condominiums and we'll have 10 separate wells. They said, fine.
Yeah.
You're out of our hair. We don't even want to deal with you.
Yeah, I mean, DEP doesn't really want another PWS to oversee either, I don't think, but, we kind of are in a different type of situation.
I think it was the first time I've almost lost my temper in 20 years.
Oh, I doubt.
Oh,
But it was tricky because, as Ed mentioned, the wastewater regs in calculating the number of people per household versus the drinking water regs do not correspond. So, wastewater calls for 2 people, whereas drinking water calls for 4. So our numbers were skewed, and so that's kind of, we couldn't really make that work with DEP either. So there were a lot of complicating factors regarding water and wastewater, but I think that's been the biggest hurdle, and I think we have found a solution to move forward.
Yeah, I like it.
The other thing we will also submit with this is a revised traffic report. We've had that done as well. So, I mean, we have all the components already put together, so.
Okay.
This is what we'll be doing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your
Yeah,
time.
thank you for your time. I'll take these back. I need to keep working on these a little bit more. But,
Thank you, Sarah.
yes, thank you. I appreciate being able to kind of give you the quick overview.
Now, I used to be a Carver resident. I lived on Plymouth Street.
Looking to move back?
Hmm?
Looking to move back?
I am not.
Thank you for sharing that you used to be a resident, Mr. Engel. It's always a pleasure to see you, sir.
My next move is into a nursing home.
A 55 and older community on
Yeah, Patriot Pines.
Patriot Pines, is that what we're getting at?
Oh, no.
Okay.
Can't afford.
All right. Well, thank you, guys.
All right, thank you very
Yeah,
much.
thank you.
We'll see
Thank you.
soon, I'm sure. Have a good night.
Thank you.
You too. All right, other business. Planning board member notes.
Mr. Chairman, if I can, just a little update to the board members. I had a meeting this afternoon out at the URP site, Route 44, development out there with the applicant, just with the RDA members, trying to just get an update of where they're at and how they are with the process. I would highly encourage this board to arrange a site visit, as we have new members, to go out there and see what they've done. I know a lot of the members have been here for a while during this whole process, and we have a couple of permits that they're acting on that this board has done. And they've done a wonderful job out there on grading and cleaning up the site and getting it ready. They've gone through a long process, and it looked really, really nice. I was impressed. So I would say that maybe sometime next month or whatever, we can get with the applicant, go out there and just take a peek. I think you guys, for the new members, it'd be a great visit, just to see where they are.
Sure.
They're in the process of getting through their ENF.
They just
The
closed comment
environmental?
on the MIPA. They submitted their DEIR number 2, and looking forward to the final EIR on the heels of this.
Right, so they're getting close to that process and being done with the MIPA process and stuff, so that, it's encouraging. So I would just bring to the board, and maybe we can talk about it and set up a time to get out there and visit with them. It would be good for you guys to take a peek. They've done that site was in pretty bad shape, if you remember correctly, and it's really nice. So, just
You want to schedule a time to do that, or do you want to talk to the people working on the project to see when they would be available to?
I know, talking with the Mr. Delholm and the engineer out there today, that they're amenable for any time. So I would suggest that maybe we can work with the planner to set up a time that would, and he'll email us all and see when we can get together and get out there with them. They're amenable at any time to meet with anybody, to go out there. They're pretty proud of where they're at right now, and there's a lot of information that would be helpful to all of us, never mind the new members.
So do you want to do that, schedule something, and either call us or email us, and we'll see?
I'll be glad to do that, Mr. Chair. In fact, I'm looking ahead at the calendar. We have our next meeting scheduled for Tuesday, October 9th, and I'm pretty certain that in the next couple of weeks, I can reach out to the developer. We need only 48 hours to post a site visit, so I'm certain that between now and the 9th, at our next meeting, we can schedule a date. I'll reach out to each members. I know we have some blackout days. Sorry, Jen, you
No,
have a...
the 9th is the next meeting, or September 25th?
I'm sorry, September 25th.
Okay.
I'm skipping ahead to October, forgive me. But yes, September 25th is our next meeting.
The year's going by quick enough.
I'm
Oh,
nudging it along, I guess.
but thank you, that's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Will.
Has there been any further discussion on that property as far as what might go in there, or I know that's the million-dollar question?
It's, right now, the way that it was explained to me today is that the amount of effort and cost just to get through the MIPA process is kind of like stopped everything. Without them having a game plan and actual documents through the MIPA process, and they call it their playbook, there really wasn't any way that they could really approach someone I mean, I'm sure they've talked with many of people. Some of the big hurdles that was mentioned today was gas and electricity. Those are the largest, biggest problems that they're looking at. And they're working close with Eversource on both issues, on how and to get that all into that site. So there isn't, as they were telling, the comments were made today, is that in the southeast region, there is a very lack of power in this area, south of Boston. So there's not much available. So they've been working with Eversource on that, and they know by the time that the MEPA process is complete, that they'll probably have something in place with Eversource on how they're gonna get, because it'll take a significant amount of upgrading of the Eversource lines and transformers and transfer stations and stuff like that to bring the power into that area, which would be helpful for all of us. So, it was impressive.
Yeah. You never think of those things, but yeah, that would be a big deal. If you're gonna have some large buildings out there, they're gonna do manufacturing or whatever.
They were saying a state-of-the-art distribution center up there was like 4 megawatts, they were saying, Dave, something like that?
They need 8 megawatts.
8 megawatts.
Right.
So that's a couple of gerbils running really fast.
So before anyone would be interested in looking at a property for their site to build something there, they would have to know how much energy is available, whether
Yeah,
it be gas or
and I think
electric or whatever.
A lot of the stuff that they've been working on, going through the MEPA process, it includes every aspect. I mean, some of the traffic things that they were saying went all the way down to South Meadow Road, the impacts, you know, and the Route 44, 58 interchange there, that type of traffic impacts, but also the environmental impacts, all the way up to what was the one that the greenhouse emissions that they had to address. And it was a lot, and I think it's good information for all of us to see, and I highly encourage that we do that.
Thank you, Will.
Yep.
Anyone else have anything that they would like to say this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on. Oh,
Yeah, I just wanted to wish everyone a Happy New Year. That's the Jewish religion. Our New Year started yesterday.
oh, thank you. Playing director notes.
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing further to say this evening.
See, we have the minutes of August 28th, 2018. You have those in our packages?
Yep.
Yep.
And I sent these out to the planning board last Thursday or Friday, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken.
That is correct.
Question, these are the ones I wrote. Were my vote counts correct with the, 4-0 or 3-0?
They reflected it as such in my notes.
Okay.
I actually didn't have a chance to go on Area 58. I sometimes do that
Okay.
before our next meeting, so I can kind of
Sure.
run through the meeting and the minutes, but
Okay.
I didn't have a chance to do that this week. But it struck me, Ms. Bogart, as though you captured the true spirit and essence of the deliberations and proceedings of the evening.
And I mimicked the formatting of other minutes.
I was intent
Very-
on sending you
very
mishanded
manually.
minutes. You set up a great format for us.
I'm trying to figure out fonts and underlines.
I'll make a motion to approve as written.
Very good.
I tried.
So we have a motion, do we have a second?
I wasn't there, so I can't.
Who's,
You, me, and Miss Jen.
okay. Did you second? Can you second?
I made the motion.
Oh, okay, yeah, I'll second.
That a girl.
Yeah.
Motion, second. Those in favor?
Aye.
So 3 of us and 3 abstentions. All right, next meeting date.
September 25 at 7 PM, Mr. Chair.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion to adjourn, second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everyone.